Welcome back to the 2-Minute Warning. Today I will be going over my biggest winners from the 2021 NFL Draft. But before getting to that topic, question for those of you viewing, who do you think was the biggest loser from this 2021 NFL Draft? Kind of a reverse question from the topic, but again, I want to hear your guys' thoughts, so comment down below and I'll reveal my answer at the end. But getting into this list and this topic, I have a total of 8 teams I'll be going over as winners from the 2021 NFL Draft, but I'm not ranking them. I'm just going through who I think overall they won the draft. It was a great process for them, and I think they absolutely executed the draft in this offseason. Again, not ranking them, but they definitely made my list. Number 1, I'm going to start off with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jaguars, you got your franchise quarterback, and that's a win in itself. As long as Trevor Lawrence lives up to the hype and he could be your franchise guy over the next 10, 15, 20 years, it's a win. Doesn't matter about what happens to the rest of the draft picks. If you have a generational quarterback and a guy that could be the face of the franchise and lead a team to success, you've already won the NFL Draft. But it doesn't stop there. I don't think we'll ignore the rest of the draft. I do think these are players that could play with Trevor Lawrence and be successful with him along his career over the next decade. Travis Etienne, a player I'm very high on. I think he's very talented. I think he's very skilled. However, I'm not truly for the Jaguars drafting him. I don't think it was a positional need, but I'm not against it because now they have one of the best backfields in the NFL between James Robinson and Travis Etienne, as long as he pans out. Dual running backs work in the NFL. Look at Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. So it's not a completely bad move. I'm for it. Just wouldn't be my pick. Also, in the second round, they drafted Tyson Campbell, a pretty good corner to help out this secondary, and a possible healthy C.J. Henderson, and a newly signed Shaquille Griffin and Walker Little as well. An offensive tackle the Jaguars took in day 2 so that they could protect Trevor Lawrence. Overall, you got a good running back duo. You have a generational talent in the face of your franchise at the quarterback position. You got protection to help them out, and the secondary is getting there as well. Absolute win for the Jaguars, in my opinion. Moving on, another team to talk about is going to go to the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns, they really won this draft by being patient. Patience really is a key trait in everywhere in life, and it worked out for the Cleveland Browns. In the first round, their debate of who they were going to go for, yet they just let the cards fall how they fall, and it worked out in their favor. Greg Newsome fell to them in the first round, a top-rated cornerback in this NFL draft. And looking at this Browns secondary now, Greg Newsome being an addition to the secondary, he doesn't have to go in there and, be the lockdown corner, the number 1 on the team. Obviously, the Browns aren't going to be against that, but he doesn't have to go into a secondary and absolutely carry it and be the captain of it right away. And that is a good thing because he's not alone. He's got Denzel Ward, who's kind of already solidified himself as the number 1 corner there. There's Greedy Williams. There's a great slot corner in Troy Hill. There's a great captain in John Johnson at the safety position. Greg Newsome is entering a great secondary that the Browns have completely turned around in just one offseason. It might not click right away just because of so many new players, but in time, I think once we hit that halfway point of the season, the Browns secondary is going to be scary for any offense. They also got JOK in the second round, a top linebacker in this draft that was arguably supposed to go in the late first round, yet the Browns, they were patient in the first round, and then the second round, they decided to be aggressive. This guy's still there. We're going up to get him, and they got JOK to help out Anthony Walker at the linebacker position and really kind of help captain this front 7 to captain and lead and guide. Not to say a rookie's going to go in there and captain a team and take over, but in time, I do think he has the talent to help out these guys like Jadeveon Clowney, Myles Garrett, Malik Jackson, Takarius McKinley. JOK was a steal, Greg Newsome was a steal, and the Browns definitely won this draft by being patient and being aggressive all at the same time. Another team I'm going to be talking about, it's going to be the Carolina Panthers. I think the Carolina Panthers took us by shock in the first round. Number 8 overall, I'm not sure any of us expected them to go cornerback. And when they went cornerback, I don't think anyone's expected J.C. Horn to be the first guy taken off the board. But I'm not against the pick. I thought they were going to invest in Sam Darnold and either give him a weapon or give him a lineman in the first round. Yet they did neither, and they decided to address those things later in the draft. But J.C. Horn, a special talent that's going to help out this secondary extremely. He's a playmaker, he's a ball hawk, and that is what the Panthers team to help lead this secondary. You already have a decent secondary with an up-and-coming safety in Jeremy Chin. You signed A.J. Boye, a guy that's past his prime, but can still provide leadership and mentorship to this secondary, and I like J.C. Horn to possibly the number 1 corner there. And like I said, investing in Sam Darnold is key to bringing this team success, and that's what they did in the later rounds, drafting Terrace Marshall Jr. out of LSU to give Sam Darnold possibly the best receiving core he's ever played with between Terrace Marshall Jr., DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson. Of course, Christian McCaffrey to throw to in the backfield. Great execution by the Panthers, and they got to protect that guy as well, and that's why they drafted Brady Christensen, a great offensive lineman that can hopefully keep Sam Darnold healthy for a very long time. Overall, Panthers absolutely executed in the later rounds. They invested in their quarterback in the first round. They got an absolute playmaker, and that is execution and a win to me. Moving on, Los Angeles Chargers, another team that won by being patient like the Cleveland Browns. In the first round, there was debate, should the Chargers trade up and get Penei Sewell, the number 1 tackle, or should they just stay where they are and settle for the 3rd best tackle in Christian Darrisaw? Yet they didn't do either, and they had a little bit of luck fall their way in getting Rashawn Slater at number 13 overall. And that is a win in itself to give Justin Herbert, arguably the best rookie quarterback in the NFL, arguably the best young quarterback in the NFL, the protection he deserves. He's, like I said, already in the best young quarterback conversation, and he had one of the worst offensive lines last year. Now that he's going to have a completely rebuilt one and brand new one and a very solid one, he's going to only be better, and this Chargers team won the draft with Rashawn Slater itself, but it didn't stop there. In the second round, Asante Samuel Jr. fell in their lap at number 47 overall. Asante Samuel Jr. was graded by some to be the 4th or 5th best corner in this NFL draft, yet I believe he was the 7th or 8th corner taken off the board, and clearly that's a win for the Chargers. This was a guy, Asante Samuel Jr., was a guy that was possible to fall in the late first round, and there's a debate should the Chargers trade back into the first round to go get him. Yet, same thing as the Browns, they just let things fall where they fall, and it resulted in luck falling their way again in the first round and in the second round, getting a corner in Asante Samuel Jr., who might be limited somewhat physically, but I think with Brandon Staley, a great defensive-minded head coach, he's going to be able to overcome that and get absolute maximum out of him to help out this secondary. And Chris Harris Jr., Michael Davis, and a hopeful, healthy Derwin James. You now got the FSU brothers together and Derwin James and Asante Samuel Jr. And then in the later rounds, they got Chris Rumpf to help out that pass rush, and Joey Bosa, Jerry Tillery, Kenneth Murray, and also you have a receiver from the 3rd round, Josh Palmer, who could be an eventual Mike Williams replacement. Overall, great execution and great way of being patient for the LA Chargers in this draft, and they won to me. Another one, this might be one of the teams I'm most fond of from the NFL draft and how much they've won, is the Miami Dolphins. There's debate of whether or not they made the right move at number 6 overall in the first round, taking Jalen Waddle over Penei Sewell. I do think Penei Sewell is a more for sure thing, but they drafted O-line later, and I do think it'll work out. Now that Tua Tagovailoa has some weapons, such as Jalen Waddle, Will Fuller, Mike Gesicki, Devontae Parker, I think is going to make it the Dolphins worthwhile, and they got Liam Eichenberg in the second round to protect Tua Tagovailoa. Say what you want about Tua. He might not have the prettiest numbers, prettiest stats, prettiest throws. He might even be considered a bust. But at the end of the day, the kid wins, and that was on a bad O-line and a bad receiving core last year. It wasn't awful, but it wasn't great. And now heading into this year with a better O-line and a better receiving core, he's only going to get better. I don't know if I'm sold on Tua in the long term, but I do think the kid's going to get better with this team and could possibly take his team to the playoffs. Looking at the other side of the football, Miami Dolphins in the first and second round took Jalen Phillips, a big pass rusher out of Miami that some people compare to Joey Bosa. I don't know if I would grade him that high, because if he was as good as Joey Bosa, he would have been drafted like Joey Bosa and he would have been a top 10 pick. But that's a different conversation. That's a different video. I'm a fan of Jalen Phillips, and I do think he'll help out this pass rush with Christian Wilkins, and Emmanuel Ogbah. That's going to help out that front D-line, and Andrew Van Ginkel to lead the front 7 as well. And then getting Javon Holland, arguably the best safety in the NFL draft. I think he's the 2nd or 3rd best, but some people make the argument that he was the best. Javon Holland helping out Bobby McCain, Byron Jones, and Xavier Howard. This is a nasty Dolphins team that definitely won the draft and put themselves in a position to make the playoffs in the upcoming year. Looking at a couple more teams, Denver Broncos. I think they won with them taking Patrick Surtain at number 9 overall, because if you look at their secondary, when they play at their best, this might be the best secondary in the NFL. While I think I think they should have made a bigger quarterback move in this offseason other than Teddy Bridgewater, whether it be trade for Aaron Rodgers or trade for Deshaun Watson or draft Justin Fields. Besides that, they did have a very good offseason, and that includes the NFL draft, getting Patrick Surtain to help out Kyle Fuller, Ronald Darby, Justin Simmons, Kareem Jackson, Bryce Callaway. This is a great secondary in the NFL, and this Broncos team might have the best secondary in the NFL when they play at their best. And looking at the running back, they drafted Javonte Williams in the second round, traded up to get him. having a running back in a backfield room full of Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon, one of those guys are going to pan out, whether Melvin Gordon turns his career around and proves everyone wrong that he is a top running back, or Javonte Williams turns out to be the rookie he is supposed to be. Broncos won, by getting one of the better backfields in the NFL and one of the best secondaries in the NFL. That is a win to me. Two more, New York Giants, getting Kadarius Toney, getting Aziz Ojulari. Kadarius Toney, that's debatable because Kadarius Toney has the upside to be a great wide receiver in the NFL, but it wasn't the biggest necessity for the Giants. But now that they have Kadarius Toney, they could have the best receiving core in the NFL between Toney, between Golladay, between Slayton, between Shepard, between Ross, between Engram, between Rudolph. Could be the best receiving core in the NFL, and you can't argue against the team at getting the number one position in the NFL. And then getting Aziz Ojulari to help out the pass rush on the other side of the football with Leonard Williams is a win as well. He was a guy that could have been a late first rounder, and the Giants stole him in the second round. Now you have a defense of Williams, Ojulari, James Bradbury, Adoree Jackson, Jabril Peppers, and Logan Ryan. Giants, they executed well, and they executed in getting draft capital for the future in 2022 as well. Damn. Chicago Bears, last team on this list, they won as well, just like the Jaguars, because they have their franchise guy. Assuming Justin Fields turns out and you got him over the next 10 to 15, 20 years, the first round you gave up for him will mean nothing in the long run, and therefore they won by getting their franchise guy and getting someone to protect him in Tevin Jenkins. Overall, though, as long as Fields turns out, they won. Rest of the draft is debatable, but I think getting your franchise guy is enough to make this list. So going through the list one last time, Browns, Bears, Panthers, Chargers, Dolphins, Broncos, Jaguars, and Giants. 8 teams have made my list as the biggest winners in this NFL draft. But as always, guys, I want to hear your thoughts. Who do you think are the winners? And of course, question for the video, who is the biggest loser? To me, I think I'd have to give it to the Houston Texans just because they didn't have a pick in the first 2 rounds. And even with their first pick, they decided to go with the quarterback, Davis Mills, who's not a high-graded quarterback by any means. And this just kind of shows they're not set on Deshaun Watson. They don't know what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson. And that franchise is just free-falling to me. And them taking a quarterback is not a good sign for the Deshaun Watson, the only guy that can really keep this franchise afloat. But that's just my opinion. I want to hear your guys' thoughts. And as always, thanks for watching, guys. 2-minute warning.